Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Croll, and a big hello to everyone listening and watching to this pre-recorded Monday show, a show dedicated to our memories, good and bad, of Goodison Park. We've got the best and worst Goodison has had to offer over the years, and joining me in the Royal Blue studio to reminisce, we've got Paul Wheelock. Paul, how are things? All good?
Yeah, good mate. Good mate. All leading up, isn't it, to this, to obviously the last week at Goodison, the Southampton game, and I know we're going to be talking about our memories today, so yeah, really looking forward to it, mate.
Absolutely. Also on today's show, we've got Everton fan, season ticket holder, Gladys Street ender and match going mate of mine, Rob Astell. How are things, Rob? All good?
Good, thanks, mate. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No worries, all good. So as mentioned, this is a pre-recorded show. We are not live today. We actually recorded this show last Thursday, so that would have been the 15th of May. So when this goes out, Goodison's final men's team match will have been played, and we don't know the score or basically what happened. So it doesn't matter for that, because today's show is all about Goodison Park memories. And basically the truth of the matter is that I was worried that I was going to be too hungover to work on Monday. So I've booked the Monday off to recover, and I didn't want the Monday to go without a show. So we're here talking Goodison Park memories instead. Incidentally, we will be reacting to Goodison Park final men's game on Tuesday. So that'll be with me and Chris Beasley and anyone else who wants to join us. So we're going to get nostalgic. We're going to talk about our love for Everton and Goodison Park itself. The usual topics, as one would appreciate for a podcast like this. We're going to talk about our best ever Goodison match, best ever Goodison goal, worst ever match, best ever player, and best opposition player. So you get the gist. There's plenty more questions that I'm going to put to the lads. And for those watching on YouTube, please share your memories as the show goes on. So Paul, we'll start with you. As you know, just mentioned there, we are pre-recorded. We don't know the score or anything like that. And I'm sure this next question will kind of coincide with your first ever game at Goodison. But can you actually remember the point of when you actually thought, I know I'm an Everton fan? I'm sure you were a kid at the time.
Yeah, I think I didn't have a choice. My dad is an Evertonian. His dad was an Evertonian. So it was, and I don't know, it probably wasn't. I'm 44 now. So when I became, it's like 5, 6, 7 when you start getting into footy, isn't it? Like a lot of kids. So it was a good time to become an Evertonian, because obviously all I remember from the 80s was my dad and his uncles, who were all Reds. They seemed to go down to Wembley either together every year or every other year. So it's growing up now. It's if you didn't have that influence of parents or brothers and sisters or uncle, aunties, grandparents, whatever it is, you may be straying towards Liverpool because they're obviously having a successful period. But whereas maybe now it's that kind of born not manufactured thing, isn't it? Really, if you've got to be an Evertonian because it's been a tough few years, hasn't it? But back then it was one of the most successful clubs in England, wasn't it? And in Europe as well, with the '85 Cup Winners' Cup win. So from a young age, mate, yeah, I can remember. I'll talk about my first game, but it was around 86, 87.
First game was 86, 87.
His first game was 86, 87, so it was that title winning year, wasn't it? So yeah, from probably 5 or 6 of being a Blue, yeah.
So you do remember obviously winning the league title then?
Yeah. Funnily enough, just because we're only been about 5 or 6, so my first game was the last game of that season at home. We played Tottenham and we won 1-0. And weirdly enough, Tottenham were playing in the FA Cup final the next Saturday, or I think it might have been a midweek, and they were playing. So they rested the team. And weirdly enough, there was a player called Nico Klassen who played for Tottenham. He was a Belgian. But he was like a foreigner in English football. So I must remember being a kid thinking, oh my God, Nico Klassen, like, who's this? So he played that night, but Everton won 1-0. They'd already won the league by that point. But I can always remember, I think my dad went to Norwich where we won the league. Van den Hauwe scored. And I remember only finding out by it being on like the ITN news or something like that at 6 o'clock kind of thing. And I remember seeing the goal, I think it was right-footed by Van den Hauwe. It's just funny, just when you give us the list of questions, it like brought the memories back. It's just very different to what kids or any of us can, it's all so instant now. But like, it was, so kind of my first season was the title winning one. All gone wrong since.
So what was the first match then? Can you remember?
It was that Tottenham game. Last game. It was definitely, if not the last game of the season, it was definitely Everton's last game. It was at Goodison. I'm sure it was a midweek. We won 1-0. I think Derek Mountfield scored, and
Where did you sit, out of curiosity? Back then?
I think we were in like the paddock or something like that. I think it was like my dad definitely grew up. It was like the boys' pen, wasn't it, and stuff like that. And I think that's where my first game was. Like, it was like the paddock or Bullens Road, but it definitely feels like it was the paddock. It feels like growing up. I didn't have a season ticket then. But I remember just spending a lot of time there. Yeah, very different. Like just getting lifted.
Yeah,
it's just great. Like,
different time, isn't it? Completely.
I'm pretty sure we paid to get in, like, but I definitely remember getting lifted over the turnstiles. Right. Like it's just completely different. But yeah, it was from that moment, kind of like, when people say, when was your first World Cup? It was a bit too young for 86 and Maradona and stuff like that. Yeah. But it was like a year after that. It's like speaking before we started, I've got 2 lads, and like obviously me being such a big footy fan, or I think it kind of gets passed on to your kids, doesn't it? Really. But I think it was always like a World Cup that made it for and it certainly happened with my lads kind of thing. But so my first one was 1990, so it was like before then it was Everton kind of thing. But yeah, 86, 87 was when I started.
I mean, it's worth putting out that it's nice that your first match was late 80s, mid 80s or whatever, because we're kind of similar generation, aren't we? So we haven't compared notes as to what was the best match, best player, which I think is probably the best thing. But it is worth wearing in mind. That we're doing another one of these, and the generations on that show is going to be slightly different. Conor O'Neill and Gav Buckland and another guest are going to do something like that. So we're obviously not going to say like the Bayern Munich game is our best game or anything like that, because obviously I don't think, I wasn't alive, and we obviously didn't go. So it's going to be from late 80s to 90s onwards, isn't it? So what was your first fandom of Everton and your first game, Rob?
So just to add on to Paul's story there about as our fella going down to Norwich to see when we won the league. I was born that day.
Okay. Oh wow!
Yeah, I was born that day. Yeah, so my dad had a good day then. But my first introduction to Everton was sort of like vaguely 93-ish, 94, and I got the Everton away kit for my birthday that year, and I hadn't been to a game at this point. And then my dad pulled me in August. I was playing out in the street, and he said, "Come here, Zach. I've got 2 options. You can either have £1 a week pocket money, or you can come to the match with me." So stupidly, I chose going to the match. And it was the first game was Everton Forest, and we sat in what was then the very, very new Park End.
Right.
And we got beat 2-1. We were 2-0 down, and the Hinchcliffe own goal.
Didn't put you off, obviously, then.
Didn't put me off, obviously. I was gluten for punishment after that. And the Hinchcliffe own goal, and their centre-half scored, someone, Cooper, I think it was. Paul Rideout scored for Everton. And
Steve Cooper? It wasn't Steve Cooper, was it?
It might have been, yeah. I'd have to fact check it, but I know we did play in that game. 2 future Everton assistants played in the middle of the park for Forest. Ian Woan and Steve Stone.
Oh yeah,
played in that game. So that was my first game.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, your dad must have been absolutely fuming that you were born on the day that Everton lifted the trophy. You can't go out for a pint.
I know.
He's got to be in the hospital waiting for you to come out. Well, I mean, mine, very similar to you. I mean, I think I've mentioned this a couple of times on the pod, but my dad and my granddad were both Reds. And the only really reason I've become a Blue is through my auntie, who took me the game in 1994, and it was a dour 0-0 against Ipswich, Saturday the 12th of February. And obviously, again, you had the poor result. I didn't have the best result, but it didn't put me off. Obviously, Mike Walker was the manager, and in the lineup was Brett Angel, Peter Bergery,
some rough names there,
and Paul Rideout, who obviously went on to lift the trophy. There's a standout there. But yeah, from then on in, obviously the season after that was the cup win, and I'm going to a number of cup games, and I probably got my first season ticket maybe the year after that when Royal was there.
I think I was the same as you. I had the season ticket in the paddock the year after the cup win, and I went to games sporadically in that 94 and 95 season. Yeah. I went to all the cup games, bar the final, weirdly. Don't know why. I think probably because we never had season tickets at the time. But yeah, the season after was my first season ticket in the paddock. No, good on him.
I was going to say, you just wanted a proper pint, and not look after you.
I know, yeah. Good on him. He couldn't get a ticket.
No.
He could get a ticket, but he couldn't get one for me, so he didn't go, which was nice. So we watched it in the Masons and Old Swan.
Oh.
That's a dead sunny day. Remember it quite vividly, actually, that game.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was that was probably my first real foray into Everton, really.
Okay, well, I mean, last match, I think we can all conclusively say that we're lucky enough to know that we're going to be there on Sunday, Southampton. So I don't think we need to really go into detail on that. Like I say, me and Chris Beasley going to have a podcast on Tuesday looking back at the game. Hopefully a win, hopefully some fantastic celebrations before with the coach arrival and afterwards. So keep an eye out for that podcast on Tuesday. We will be live for there. Paul, best match you've ever been to at Goodison Park? I mean, I'm sure there's a couple. You can have, one or two options if you want, but, conclusively, best match you've ever been to?
I'll mention a few. Funnily enough, I've been at all 3 relegation deciders. I've just realised that. I did Everton 3, Wimbledon 2. I remember being at the top of the Gladys because, Rob was saying then, back now, you got to have a season ticket, or you're not going to get a ticket at all, are you? Growing up, I've been in every part of the ground, and I don't know why that day, but we were at the top of the Gladys Street. Man, there was a lad from school went with me and my dad, and it was an old fella, probably not as old as I'm making him out now, kind of thing. But I just remember looking at him thinking, I hope he's going to make it through this game. And so that I've been through that, been through Palace 3-2, and then the Bournemouth one, we'll probably speak about later. And I know they're not anywhere where we want to be as Evertonians, but they are matches you remember, and obviously they all turned out well. Fiorentina, I was there then. I was like a reporter then, so I couldn't go on Saturdays. But again, got a ticket for that. I can't remember who I went with, but again, it's just different times. Fiorentina will take some beating for the atmosphere. It was just unbelievable. But the one I've chosen, you told me to put dates down because I wouldn't remember the exact date for this. It was February 1991. And it was Everton 4, Liverpool 4.
Okay, fair enough. Okay,
yeah.
We're in the family enclosure. So it's like again, different place in the ground again. And if it was such an emotional game, I don't know if I'd been to a derby before then. I can't remember if I had, but it was one way then the other. I don't think Everton ever led at any stage in that game, but we kept on fighting back. I think Sharp got 2 and Cossie got 2. And I remember when it was 4-4, Barnes was unbelievable that night for Liverpool, scored an absolutely outrageous goal. I remember when I think it made it 4-4, a steward next to us, a lady, bigger lady, and just grabbing me and hugging me. And it was just probably 9 or 10 then. And I was this is unbelievable. There's few...
It sucks you in stuff like that, doesn't it?
There's few things like football, that does that to you. And I was just saying, there's probably been better matches, better wins and stuff like that. But as a young kid, if I didn't have the bug before, then that was the one for me. It's that was just, 4-4 in a derby. And we won the replay as well. I didn't go to replay. My dad went to
Dave
replay.
Watson scored the replay, didn't
it was a lot more boring. But it was, I'm kind of trying to think of what I was like as a kid, if you know what I mean, because they're the ones that really form you, aren't they? And that was probably my favourite one as a kid.
I mean, I've taken the emotion out of mine, so we'll come on to mine in a sec, but go on, yours.
Mine's a split between 2, really. I mean, to be honest, one's probably a bit more of a clear winner, and mine is April 19th, 2005, played United at home. Ferguson scored. It's the season we finished 4th, which was, we had no right to do that year, given the squad we had and given, the stuff that had gone in the previous summer. And I remember the build up to that game, in the couple of weeks building up to it, we weren't great. We weren't in great form. We were struggling a little bit, almost not running out of steam. Yeah, running out of steam is probably the right word. And we just needed one big result to kind of get us going again. And that night will just be, we battered United that night.
Tony Scott mentioned it in yesterday's podcast. He said the exact same thing.
We absolutely battered them that night, and it was, what was it? Martin Tyler's commentary. It's Duncan Ferguson 10 years on from what he did back in 1995, and I just remember being an 18-year-old kid at the time, going, "This is amazing. This is probably why people do it." And the place was shaking. The place was absolutely.
He said it was the best atmosphere since Munich, wasn't it? The 85 game.
And then, was it injury time when Gary Neville and Paul Scholes got sent off?
It was close to it, wasn't it? When he booted the ball at the final.
Yeah. And then Paul Scholes, that was Neville, and Paul Scholes kicked Kevin Kilban, and the noise. Then you're like, oh my gosh, we're going to win this here now. We're going to. That's probably the standout one for me, because it meant so much at the time. Thought, we're going to get this. We just needed a couple more results to get us over the line. But the other one that sticks out for me is 2014, March 2014, we played Arsenal. and we beat them. We beat.
Stepped on my toes there.
Oh, sorry. I'll let you carry. I'll let you carry that one.
Go on. No, I'm only joking.
But again, that season we had no one expected us to do that well under Martinez the first season, and I think at that point we were banging on the door. We were banging on the door, I thought, but weren't quite there. And we'd gone on a pretty good run of about 6 or 7 games of winning. This Arsenal game come up and they were faltering. Classic Arsenal, you know what I mean? Like it was. I thought, God, these are Goodison here if we beat them. And for me, that the reason why I picked that as the best match is, for me, that was a complete performance, complete and utter dominance of a team who still had some absolutely world-class players in the team at the time. Mikel Arteta, Olivier Giroud, you know, really, really, really good players, and Everton absolutely battered them front to back, and it was the most complete 90 minutes performance I've ever seen from an Everton side. They're probably my two, but I'd say the Duncan Ferguson versus United one's probably mine.
I think just going back to the Duncan Ferguson one with Neville and Scholes getting sent off. Don't get me wrong, as soon as they both got sent off, you knew Everton were winning this game. But I was almost a little bit gutted because you just know that, well, Man United got 2 players sent off. That's why you won. But it wasn't. That wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Like we knew what the real story was, but you just know rival fans would say, well, 2 players off, like that.
Yeah,
that's the reason why. But yeah, I don't think anyone could argue with that. Obviously, you've just mentioned the Arsenal game 3-0, which was obviously Sunday, April the 6th, 2014. I think it's really easy for us to say, like, Merseyside derby wins, because there has been, well, I'd say there's loads, but there's been some standout moments. The reason I'm not going for a Merseyside derby win for me is because we've got a question later on, the best Merseyside derby you've ever been to. So maybe Paul's giving away his best Merseyside derby there, but you can have a think, can't you? Yeah. The Arsenal game, you've literally touched on everything. It was a complete performance. We were going for the Champions League. I checked it before, so we were on a run of 5 games, a winning run of 5 games, and then we even won the next game as well after that. So I think we ended up 6 games without defeat, or six games in a row that we won. It just felt like at that time Everton were unstoppable. Yeah. So taking the emotion out of it, it was just that we were the better team. How we didn't get Champions League that season is just criminal, isn't it?
72 points, wasn't it?
That'd have you finished. What does someone say? That'd have you finishing second or third
be
this
second
year?
now, wouldn't we? Like,
insane, isn't it? I mean, that shows how good the league is.
Yeah,
there at that point. You know what I mean? When teams are challenging for that. I mean, goals from Naismith, Lukaku, even Arteta scored an own goal. But yeah, I just remember it because it was my niece's christening afterwards. So we just, we went to match and then went to my niece's christening afterwards. But to beat Arsenal 3-0, like, I know they probably weren't the Arsenal of old, but they certainly weren't the Arsenal of old.
There was remnants of that team though, wasn't there?
Still good players.
Still really good players. Still really good players in that team.
And we just annihilated them. And obviously, we know what happened under Martinez after that, but just looking back at that game, Everton were unstoppable, and we should have got Champions League. But
absolutely,
what can you do? And that sort of stuff happens. We'll we'll move on to maybe something not as exciting. What's the worst match you've ever been to, Paul?
Oh God, there's been a few, hasn't there? There's been a few. In terms of like, this isn't my answer, but I've got to mention it because we talk about a great derby memory in the 4-4 game in terms of emotions, talk about a great derby win that I've been to later on in the pod. But I was there for the Gary McAllister free kick. Oh my God. I was definitely on that side of the ground as well. And it was some game. It was it was some game of football.
Wasn't it Easter Monday night or something like that, wasn't it?
And where you could just see Gerrard and you're going, what are you doing, keeper? What are you doing? Why are you that for? And McAllister, kind of been linked with us loads over the years around that time. Hell of a footballer, to give him his credit. Great goal, but absolutely gut-wrenching. I don't think we've had a few over the years, haven't we, against Liverpool where we've been left sick, but I don't know if I've ever been as sick as that. And that it was made worse for my best mates, a big Reds as well, and then it kicked them on, didn't it? And he won the trophies and stuff like that season. So that was hard. Wrote a couple of down. Benitez, home to Watford. We were 2-1 up with 10 minutes to go and lost 5-2. And Josh King scored about 4 or something like that. And I remember just thinking...
So on that game...
That was terrible.
I was flying on holiday that game and he texted me and I didn't know the score and he texted me the score and I was sat in the airport stunned that we'd just been beat 5-2 by Watford.
I remember that actually, I remember that.
Bad, it's just bad, but loads. But probably the biggest one I've wrote down here was pretty recent, because again, I decided to pick all games that I was at, and it was that Southampton 2-1 game.
Ward-Prowse.
Free kick when Gordon, like, obviously, was the speculation about him going, wasn't any. He clearly wasn't, in my opinion, he's not all there kind of thing. And I think what happened following that, Everton was trying to push him out the door. He certainly wanted to get out the door, and he gave that stupid foul away. Yeah. And obviously it came against the backdrop of Headlock Gate and board members not take it.
It was a bad time, wasn't it?
Just a horrible day all around.
Yeah, he needed coming out and couldn't get out the car park. And it was just the whole day. There's been loads of times recently where we've come away and went, we're down. We're down. Like, this is us done. Where's this club going? But that one to me was...
So what date was that? You got it down?
January 2013. Can't be 2023.
2023.
It feels longer ago, doesn't it? But
my one comes in the same season as yours. So what's your worst match you've ever been to?
So mine, going back about 12 years from mine was Wigan in the cup.
Yeah.
Moyes, yeah.
So the context behind all that for me was, at that point, I don't know whether it was quite fully announced that Moyes was leaving, but it was very much a rumour. It was a rumour. You knew something was coming, and you knew. And Everton at that point had a solid squad, a really, really good team. And for me, they just missed that clinical number 9. And we got that in Jelavic a little bit and whatnot. But it's obviously that didn't work out. But you always felt like we were on the cusp of something with that team. He built a solid team. You had Pienaar, Baines, etc. in it, and Kale and things. And Wigan come to town, who were rock bottom of the Premier League. We're going to go down. Everton were expected to wipe the floor with them. And I've never left the game so deflated and disappointed.
Yeah, I remember.
Because thinking your name could have been on the trophy that game. Because I'm pretty certain they played Millwall in their next round.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
They played Millwall.
Did they go on to win it, though?
I know they went on to win it.
City, didn't they? Yeah.
But still, that was a relegated team, that. And I think that was such a missed opportunity for Moyes at the time. And I remember thinking at the time, maybe it is time for change. If this is what we're doing.
Definitely felt the same.
But I remember leaving that ground feeling so deflated. I think that was March, April. It was quarterfinals would have been March time, 2013.
You get Wigan at home in the FA Cup quarterfinal.
Exactly. Yeah.
The expectation is there to win.
Yeah. I mean, Paul picked up on some of the games as well. That Southampton game, that little period. I think we played Wolves between Christmas and New Year that day, and that year, and we got beat there 2-1, and we got beat against Southampton 2-1, and there's been games in the last few years where you've come out and thinking, this is it.
Yeah,
this is it. Time's up here a little bit now. But yeah, that Wigan game always kind of sticks out for me, just in pure anger as to why we never won it. And I remember Fellaini had a bit of a strop that game as well.
Yeah, he did.
He got hooked, didn't he? And he had a bit of a strop, and yeah, it just felt like everything was coming to an end that day, really.
Mine's very similar to kind of what you were saying, Paul, where you just thought, that's it, we're down. Mine was the same season as yours, so it was 2023, Thursday, 27th of April, 4-1 defeat at home to Newcastle.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one?
That when
McNeil scored I think it was 4-0.
Isak take on our whole defence right at the end.
Yeah. So it was I think it was a Thursday night, actually.
Yes, it was.
Thursday night.
It was, yeah.
It's not like us playing Newcastle at a night game, is it?
I know.
Well, a lot of them were like Thursdays as well, weren't they? But leaving that 4-1 at home, I know Newcastle were kind of on the up, and they've obviously got a clinical quality striker in Isak. But I just thought, that's it. We are completely down. Funnily enough, we know that what comes after that is the draw against Leicester, 2-2, where Pickford saves that penalty. But then the game after that is Brighton. Those two results effectively saved the season, which enabled us to go into the Bournemouth game.
Yeah.
Just needing a win. Easier said than done, obviously, but I mean, I don't like Newcastle at the best of times, so to get beat 4-1 anyway, but to get beat 4-1 in a relegation battle in a game that really you can't lose, to lose 4-1, for me, that was it. Everton were down, and there was no coming back from that, because I think Leicester at the time were picking up a couple of points, and we were having to go to their stadium and effectively not lose. We did that. We got the points. But how different that Leicester game could have been if Jordan Pickford hadn't saved that penalty as well.
That's it. The last few years are all about moments, aren't
Sliding
they?
doors,
The sliding doors
yeah.
moments, like the Mina equaliser against Wolves.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
that changed it. The Castagna chance against Newcastle.
Oh God, yeah, that could be my worst. Good
You know,
moment, that.
and
Like,
you know,
yeah.
things change, don't they? And yeah, it's funny how you end up where you are, isn't it?
I've got just a couple of special mentions, which I won't go into pure detail. Don't know if you remember this one. I was walking home. So Norwich, 27th of November 2012, 1-1.
And it rained.
The song scored in the last minute. Do you remember it?
What date was that?
November 27th, 2012.
That's around the time Thomas, my son, was born. It was 1-1, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I remember being in the hospital around then.
Yeah.
And me looking at my phone and so I was just like, you just had a kid, your first kid. And I'm like, fucking Everton, no.
So obviously,
I remember that. Yeah.
Moyes was still in charge then, and we were actually quite good, so there was no reason to be fearful of relegation. It was early in the season, with it being November. 1-0 up. I think Stephen Naismith had scored for us, and going into the 90th minute injury time, I think Moyes makes a substitution.
He does. He brings a centre half on, doesn't he?
He doesn't need to do. I can't remember who he does, but it was like, why are you doing this now when we're defending a corner? We've defended well all game. And Basson comes on. I don't know whether he comes, sorry, he just scores, basically scores a header. And the weather was terrible. We walked home from that game from Goodison, so obviously where we live, and got absolutely rained on.
Yeah.
Wet through. I've never been so annoyed.
I don't think we said a word to each other.
No, we probably didn't.
Yeah.
Get home and then get a hot bath or something when you get in, just to calm down.
God.
The other one, I remember how fuming you were after this one. West Ham, the 2-1 defeat to West Ham when Martinez was in charge. 5th of March 2016, we were 2-0 up and we conceded 3 in 12
That's when
minutes.
he brought Nias on for Lukaku, wasn't it?
Antonio scored, Sacco scored, and Payet scored a worldie.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was a free kick or whether it was just a worldie. But anyway, that was kind of the end of coming to the end of Martinez.
Oh, I was done with him after that game. I
remember you done
Yeah,
being
I was
done.
like, there'd been too many games. That,
We've had
at that
loads,
point.
haven't we, where we've been 2 or 3 up and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And
For this season alone.
Yeah, and I was like, right, it's time's up now.
Yeah.
Let's change it.
And because there has been so many, I think it is special mention for another 3-2 capitulation against Bournemouth this season.
No.
I've never been so annoyed in my life. I think I was probably more annoyed than the Norwich game, because that was different
We
circumstances.
played
but,
so well as well, hadn't we? That was the worst thing. It
but
wasn't
I
like...
do think that was the kind of end of Sean Dyche for a lot of Everton fans there. I know we had picked up another couple of good results, but to lose that game when you're 2-0, haven't played so well, and not do anything about it, or make the wrong substitutions, or not make the right substitutions, that was hard to take for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Best player that you've ever seen at Goodison in an Everton shirt?
Oh, right. I've had a good think about this. Obviously, because I started going in the late 80s, I could kind of mention the greats, but I can't because I was too young.
Okay.
So I did see, obviously, I could easily say Southall, because even like in the 95 Cup final, how good was he then? I know he wasn't the world's number one like he was in the mid-80s, but I've got to try and think of the players who mean a lot to me. And I think for a lot of our I'm obviously a bit older than you lads, but a lot of our lives, it has been hard because we have not been in the shadow of Liverpool as a club or anything like that, but obviously they've had more success than us. So I've always liked players who have fought for the badge and kind of got Everton. And I know that's a bit of a cliche, but like, that's why I love I'm not naming Richarlison, but that's why I love Richarlison so much. And that's why I'm like, when Liverpool won the league a couple of weeks ago and he went on, and I was like, oh, don't put him on, because he was like an Evertonian on the pitch. Within like about 5 minutes,
Well, he got involved
he's getting
with
a
Harvey,
scrap,
didn't
and Harvey Elliott's doing a 30 years thing. And I was like, oh, Richarlison. But I love that about him, and I love the fact that he go after Carragher on social media, and I love that about him. But so I loved Richarlison. But to me, my favourite player, I don't think he's the best player, but I loved him because he just epitomised like Everton fighting spirit. Was Cahill for me. Like, I didn't see enough. because I kind of like was season ticket or went to the game up until about 2005. Then I started working on Saturday, so I had about 10 years where I couldn't go. But I loved him. I think he was everything to me as a player. Scored big goals, derby goals, never say die. Yeah, just everything.
He epitomised everything that Everton was at the time.
Yeah, I love Cahill. Love that. He'd be my favourite player.
I agree with Paul. Cahill. Yeah, not the most technically gifted player, but at the same time, he was the talisman for the best part of nearly 7 or 8 years, coming up with not just big goals, consistently scoring as well, and he was a huge part of the success of that first Moyes team, wasn't he? And you know, you could argue his first name on the team sheet. Another player who I only remember seeing fleetingly, and because he only stayed for the one, Andrei Kanchelskis. The man was a wizard. The man was an absolute wizard. But honourable mention also, and he probably won't get mentioned a lot really. But you mentioned Neville Southall there. Me and Ian probably saw him towards the latter end of his career. But for me, Jordan Pickford has been the best goalkeeper of, you know,
our generation.
Personally, I think you look at just the last 3 years alone, the saves he's made, that one against Chelsea, the saves against Leicester the week after when he's tipping things around the post, consistently brilliant now for the past 5 years, and he is top 3 in the Premier League for me. There's a reason no one comes close to him, replacing him as England goalkeeper as well. He is absolutely world class.
Absolutely. Mine's slightly different. I mean, I've got 3. I think if it was going to... You talked about Kale being like your hero and everything. Maybe not technically, he's not being the best, but he's the one that you've said. Duncan Ferguson, for me, I was old enough at the time to be around when Duncan was there, and he was just a hero to not just me, to every Everton fan. I remember meeting him once. So Christmas Eve, me mum and dad's mates phoned me dad up and was like, they used to live at the back of Belfield when it was obviously there. Get Ian down here. The training in Belfield, and you can have a look over our fence, blah blah blah. So did that, got the ladder up, and I'm waiting there to get an autograph, and Duncan comes over, and obviously, just absolutely delighted. So Ferguson, obviously hero. Technical ability, I haven't watched Everton over the past 30 years. I'm going to say Mikel Arteta.
Yeah,
I think he's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe you could say he just didn't do just enough to get us over the line to win a trophy. You always thought he could have done more, but for a footballer on the ball, technically, he was fantastic. Scoring ability, I don't think anyone could argue Romelu Lukaku.
Yeah.
I know there was always a few murmurs about whether he tries too hard, whether he works hard enough, but quite clearly Everton have needed a goal scorer.
Yeah.
Before Romelu Lukaku came, even after Romelu Lukaku came, and was still crying out for that goal scorer. Lukaku is, I know football was alive before the Premier League in 1992, but he's Everton's record goal scorer in the Premier League. And I just have memories of him scoring huge amounts of goals. So I was obviously devastated when he ended up leaving to United, wasn't it, at the time?
Yeah.
I'm really reticent to say this one as well, but obviously because he wasn't the quality player that he was when he was at Everton, he went on to be a quality player. But obviously Wayne Rooney, technically, and just the player himself, fantastic.
I don't know if you were you there when he broke through those first 2 seasons.
Yeah. So that was the one game that sticks out for me that season was the West Brom game at home when he stands on the ball and hands on his hips, and Darren Moore absolutely tries to go for him, and he just dances past him, and you thought then, he's good, isn't he? He's
I think, did we play Bolton? I think we drew 0-0. And I remember just looking at him. It was around that time, probably late teenage. So he wasn't a hero then, but player I loved was Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo. Probably, along with Messi, probably my favourite footballer of all time, the original Ronaldo. And I could see similarities in Rooney. He was just absolutely fearless. He was unreal.
Yeah.
16, 17, on those podcasts he's been in, or former players have said, former teammates said he was the best player, and you could see he was the best player in a Premier League team at 16. I've never seen a footballer. I didn't pick him as my greatest because, as you say, did that nice season when he came back. He was still very good, wasn't he? But we just didn't see him enough, did we?
That's why he's not my number one, and I don't like to choose Rooney in these type of things because obviously he left. Listen, he made the right choice for his career. And
absolutely.
He left. He left in a bit of acrimonious circumstances or whatever, but he obviously came back. He tried his best. He was past his best, obviously, at the time when he came back. I think if he'd stayed his entire career, we'd be speaking glowingly. We might have even won a trophy. It's hard to say, but quite clearly he's been the best player that Everton have had. It's just hasn't seen the best of him.
It's mad, you look at Yamal now at Barcelona. He's clearly the best young player in the world. We had that. We literally had that. That's not
and he got better.
I remember when he played. Did he make his England debut against Turkey at Stadium of Life? He was the best player on the pitch.
Yeah.
Or against I can remember. I'm not even like most of us. without generalising, probably not the biggest England fans. Remember Euro 2024 when he played France? I like just being so proud
Just
that like
dancing past the Dan and things like that. Yeah.
But,
And it was Croatia he played.
Yeah.
He played and he was just absolutely off this world. It was then though I was like, he's not staying.
He's not staying,
He's
is
not
he? Yeah.
staying.
He couldn't, could he?
He couldn't. Yeah.
I think at the time we were all annoyed, and let's face it, he didn't leave in the best circumstances with some of the stuff that had happened. But I think now that you look back at it, you think obviously he just made the right decision for him and his career. I'm really intrigued by this next one because I've basically based this one on one performance. So, best opposition player you've seen at Goodison Park.
I've got two.
Go on, you go first then.
So my first one, so that'll be based purely on performance.
Well, you can obviously say in general,
Yeah,
but I'm thinking more. You've just Everton have been kind of annihilated by this one player, and there was nothing we could have done because this player was that good.
April 2018, Everton played City at home. Sam Allardyce was manager, and we got beat 3-1, and it should have been about 6 or 7 to City, and David Silva ran the show. And I mean, like, you know, you look and go, we can't get near him. We're chasing the shadow all the time. That one, but the one that really sticks out to me is because I think if he's not in goal, it's a different game. Everton versus Fiorentina.
Oh,
Sebastian Fry.
Yeah, Fry.
So,
God,
That's a great shout, you know.
I did. So Everton battered Fiorentina that game, and I mean, like, battered them. So I looked at the stats in this before. We had 19 shots on goal, 10 of them on target.
He was the man of the match.
He was the man of the match, and some of the saves he made in that game, especially in the second half at the Gladys seat where I was sitting, I was like, how's he made that save? And I just think if we get through that round, I think we win that trophy.
Yeah.
I think we win that trophy.
St. Petersburg won it and we beat them, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was still early on. It was the round of 16.
Last 16,
so it wasn't the quarters, which I think a lot of people mistake and thinking if we'd won that, we were in the semis.
Yeah.
We weren't. It was still a long way to go.
That's luck, like, you know, that's luck. You know, because you can't like plan for a goalkeeper having a performance like that. Do you know what I mean?
But I remember just coming out the game going, how?
Yeah.
How have you not won that game and how have we not gone through? But he was absolutely, I mean, I know he conceded 2, but he was absolutely incredible that night. I've never seen a goalkeeping performance like it against us.
No, that's a fantastic shout. I didn't even think.
Great.
Didn't even think about that one, to be honest. As a goalie, I mean, I remember that game. We'll come on to it because it's one of my picks for one of the topics. But being, you know, so proud but extremely gutted and emotional all at the same time. Because how could you not be proud of the team? Just, like you say, just a bit unlucky, Paul.
Oh my! I've not thought about it like that. I think that's the best way to do it, like individual performance. I grew up in the 90s, so just name some players. I love Cantona, even though he was a United player. Him and Giggs were in the pomp were unbelievable. Bergkamp for Arsenal. Funnily enough, City players. I love Mahrez. I've never seen a player with a better touch when he came to Goodison.
Silky, wasn't he?
Just like, wow, this is a different planet to what we're playing on here. And I hate saying it, but I've got to be honest with myself. It was a very, very difficult night with Benitez in charge when we lost 4-1 to Liverpool, but I could really see the deal with Salah that night. Like, so I hate to say it, but like, we're very lucky in the respect that, not lucky, that's not the right word, but we get to see some of the best players in the world, don't you? And then, but it's not often you come away from a game and go, oh, you know, the different class. But the player I was going to name, I loved Eden Hazard. I think there were times when at Chelsea, I just remember really looking forward to seeing him live, obviously hoping we win, clearly. But whatever happened, if I'd seen Hazard, I just think when he was at his best in Chelsea, I just thought he was magnificent. He's probably the best player I've seen at Goodison.
I've just got one, narrowed it down to one. And basically it's Roy Keane. And it came in a 2-0 defeat to United. Now, the problem with this is I'm not entirely sure of the date because in the 2-0 defeat, we lost to United basically Wednesday, the 27th of August, 1997. Now, fact check that Keane played. And then we lost 2-0 against them again, Wednesday, the 26th of December, 2001. So again, that was a 2-0 defeat. It was one of those games where I came away from that. And, well, not even came away, I watched Roy Keane dominate the midfield. He didn't need silky skills or great first touches. He just dominated the game. He was winning every second ball. He was winning every tackle. He was box to box, back and forth. And that, I think for me, that's what more football's about. He had energy. He was just incredible. And I'm just a bit gutted that there's 2 games that I can't pinpoint it. There's 2 games that Everton lost 2-0. And I'm pretty sure it was the 2001 game, because I remember, obviously, it was after 99 when they won the treble. I think maybe Keane was a little bit like, maybe he's on his way out of United, and he just fired back to say, I'm still quality. Because he'd been with United for a number of years at that point. I just remember thinking, you know, if I was going to be a professional footballer, that's how I'd want to play the game. You don't have to take people on, silky skills, you know, nutmegging people. It's just about dominating the game. And that's the type of player that he was. And that was Roy Keane at his best for me.
Great shout. He was a brilliant player. Absolutely brilliant.
This is an interesting one because we've scored a lot of goals at Goodison Park. We've all been there for. So Everton's best Everton player, best goal by an Everton player that you've seen.
Well, we've all mentioned him a minute ago, and it's Rooney against Arsenal. Privileged to be there for that one. 16, they'd gone. Think, was it 20 odd games, defending champions, unbeaten, and just sensational. Like we've all played football, and obviously footballers at that level have got an ability far beyond. But you don't see many goals like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it was dead, a free kick, you could curve it that way, but you'd think he'd go that side, and he went
to pick it out of thin air as well,
and just to drop it down on that touch out his foot. And I can just remember walking out of Goodison, and everyone was Rooney, and it was then obviously the commentary from Clive Tilsley, the famous one. You've seen some great goals over there, but yeah, that one's for me. As soon as you asked the question, that was
my only gripe about that goal, right, is that it's at the Park and not the Gladys Street. I just think it looks and sounds a million times better. That's my only gripe on it.
I've got Rooney. I've got that one, but I've got another one. I'll come on to the other one.
So my one, in terms of just utter pure quality, was Leon Osman versus Larissa.
Oh yeah,
in that Europe.
I'm glad that one's come up
in that UEFA Cup campaign, because it was just a goal of. I mean, we were the best team in the competition that year. We were absolutely outstanding. You know, we'd start games. Then do you remember we bring on Anachibi and James Vaughan? They were kind of like the bully boys once Yakubu tired out and things like that. We were just a really, really, really good side. And this Larissa game, coming towards the end of the group stages, wasn't it? And yeah, I think that made it. Winning that game made us finish top of the group for that. And yeah, it was Kale escapes with the ball down the left hand side. He knocks it into Pienaar. Sorry, knocks it into Baines. Baines knocks it into Pienaar. Flick from Pienaar. And if Leon Osman tries that again, it's in the stands, innit? But he just hits it so perfectly. It's such a brilliant, brilliant goal. That's probably my favourite goal. I can watch that over and over again.
Great shows.
Fair enough. I mean, again, Paul, Rooney against Arsenal, I was there, lucky enough, and it was the quality of the goal was fantastic. But I'm going to go with, just to be different, because I've got it written down anyway, Barry Horn, Wimbledon.
Oh, yeah.
7th of May, 1994.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I just think he had no right to score that goal. For someone who definitely didn't score goals as a player. The situation as well, 2-1 down, I think, at the time, weren't we?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was, I was there as a youngster. Obviously, at the time, I didn't understand how much it meant, because you just don't at that age, even though you're there and you're part of it. But what a hit. Yeah. Like, it just flies in, back of the net.
I'm pretty sure it was his first goal since he'd scored on his debut the season before, because he never scored. He got a lot of stick.
What's he doing?
Barry Horn. No one said shoot. Yeah. Definitely no one said shoot.
Yeah.
So that's my one.
Amazing.
Best opposition player goal.
I struggle with this one just because I'm not really kind of kept it in my head. Like, if you know what I mean.
Forget.
So I'm going to go an obvious one, because it kind of really knocked the stuffing out of me. It was probably the hardest moments I'd been an Evertonian, when we got the 10 points deducted, because I felt it was absolutely disgraceful, still do, and just so wrong. And it was the weirdest thing to go to a game around that time and don't know if a point was a good point. Horrible. But it was some goal. It was Garnacho's.
Yeah, good shout.
What can you say? Not even that great a player, is he? But my God, what can you say?
Yeah,
what can you say?
You are right as well, because obviously the 10-point deduction, we're playing United under the lights. It was a Sunday, 7 o'clock kickoff or something like that, wasn't it?
Game, wasn't it? Yeah.
So it was a weird time, and you're thinking, right, let's get behind these here. And Man United literally scored within the first 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
3 minutes on the clock. Yeah. Just completely killed the game.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? Even though it was only 1-0, there was no coming back from that, really.
Yeah.
Because the fans were just so deflated. I think if we'd scored first, it might have been different. But that, because of the quality of it as well, I think, my God,
people
what a
clapped,
goal.
didn't they? I think people not like, would you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh God, what fair play kind of thing, wasn't it?
Come on, what's yours, Rob?
I mean, I thought Cisco's was great last week.
Yeah, it was something all that, wasn't it?
No,
Yeah, to be fair. You can have it.
You know what? I think, because the one I struggled to find the data on this before was, remember Laurent Ribéry used to play for Newcastle?
Yes.
He scored an absolute screamer in the 2002-2003 season, and I mean, like, he hit it with pure venom, and it, you know, a goal that always just sticks in your mind, and no one can say. But that Garnacho goal, I think that's you know, one that is will be talked about for generations to come.
Did it
really
win like the goal of the? Must have won goal.
The Puskás goal, yeah.
Must have, surely, mustn't it?
Was that?
It might have been the season after.
Season after. I'm not just trying to search for it on the stats.
But he scores this goal, and he sort of takes it from the edge of the box.
Did we lose the game?
I
was just trying to find it for you.
Anyway, but yeah, that Garnacho goal will be, you know, will live long in the memory. I think it'll always be shown on Sky Sports for days to come. And then, but yeah, opposition goals, they're hard to pick because you want to forget them as quickly as possible, don't you, at the end of the day? But yeah,
I think you're right with regards to that, because when we decided that we were going to do this pod, I had a good think, but I saw this goal on telly the other day. I think it popped up on YouTube, and it was David Beckham's free kick in Everton's 2 undefeated United, 11th of May 2003.
Yeah.
The only reason I've really gone for this is because the position of the free kick, you're expecting him really to cross it, aren't you?
Ridiculous.
And he obviously knew exactly what he was doing. Pinpoint, goes to Richard Wright's right, where he's going to the left, and everyone just, again, expecting it to be a cross. It goes in and everyone's like, oh my God.
But if you remember about that game as well, I think if we'd have won, we'd have got
into Europe.
We were into
Europe. It was the end of the season, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think he left that season as well.
He did, yeah.
That was his last goal for United.
Yeah.
Everton were winning that game.
1-0,
Kevin Campbell scored. But that was one of them goals, like you just mentioned with that Garnacho goal. It just knocked the stuff out of it. You're like, oh.
Unexpected, but quality at the same time.
And you're like, oh, got to go and try and win this now. And we never. Yeah.
There's a theme of United players.
He was, you know what, like Beckham was a great, like you talked about Roy Keane, great player.
Yeah.
Like that team they had was something else.
What's the best stand to sit in?
Oh, yeah, this was a good one. As you say, I've definitely done, as I say, starting the podcast, kind of like the tour of Goodison growing up. We sit in the main stand now because when we kind of like, I think it was, I don't know what year it was around Koeman's first season, whatever year that was, we went on to the membership, so we got tickets when we could kind of thing, and then in that summer, we went back to the main stand. But I've got to go with the stand I think you guys are in now. Like, I was there for a number of years. The season ticket was Gladys Street behind the goal. Yeah, my dad always used to like Upper Gladys Street, and it's a great view. A lot of people love Upper Bullens. Main stand's a lovely view. Really like it where we sit, but it was behind the goal for me. Gladys Street, that'd be my best stand.
Yeah,
same. I think everyone says that.
I've sat there for 25 years. It'll always be that. I did the stadium tour recently, and obviously, you know, you go into the main stand part, don't you, and you see where, you know, the corporate boxes are and things like that. And I think it's just such a different view and a different outlook on how you watch a football game for me, and it's just not for me. I like to be behind the goal, that you know, that partisan crowd, that, you know, just. You've got to watch football with atmosphere, and I think that's why I like sitting behind the goal.
I know a lot of people who say they can't bear being behind the goal. You have to be on the side. Watch it. It's just different, isn't it, for people?
Because like I was a club footy reporter, and obviously at that stage I began to sit in the middle. I don't know whether that's influenced my decision, but it's totally different. I think I've got out of that habit. So we've been in the Park End a couple of times when we've had pre-season friendlies, just because you never get in there, and I can't stick it.
No,
can't stick it. So even in the new ground, we've gone on the side.
I do think sitting on.
But Gladys Street was the best for me.
That's atmosphere, isn't it? I think sitting on the side, you probably see more of the game. You probably get a better vantage point. But I love being behind the goal in the lower Gladys, and obviously moving to the new ground, we're behind the goal again in the south stand. So, okay, best Goodison moments. Again, obviously, you've had like best match. It doesn't have to be from that game, but is there one particular moment that just stands out? It could be a goal. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be a goal. I'll go. So I've gone. Obviously, I've said Rooney. I think for me as a kid in my fandom of Everton, that was like one of the ultimates. But I remember celebrating. My brother was with me as well. It was just insane. I think I think Tarkowski's goal has definitely got to be up there.
Yeah.
Just everything that meant. It wasn't about the result as such. It wasn't even about the points. It was about stopping Liverpool from beating Everton over 133 years at Goodison Park.
Yeah, and having that great record on us,
Although it was only a draw, it didn't matter. We stopped that. And they can, for all they want, they can look back at that and laugh. I don't care. Yeah. It was an incredible moment. And, fortunately, it was in Goodison's final season.
Yeah.
It deserved a night like that, didn't it? At the end of the day, you wanted to go out. It was the last night game, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, last night game, yeah.
I think for moments, I don't like to go back to these, but it shapes who you are as a club. But for me, that Decore goal or the Calvert-Lewin goal,
Palace
and Bournemouth, they're the most tempting moments, because if you think about it, if we go down in any of them seasons,
we're not coming back.
The club dies. In a way, and I think to win, I can't decide between the two of them which one I like more. Probably is a bigger moment, but yeah, those are very significant moments. And I remember after the game, once the final whistle went for both of them, I didn't celebrate. I sat down on my chair just for a minute, just to catch your breath and just understand what you've just kind of witnessed in a way. But yeah, they're probably my two moments. I'd say that, certainly in recent times anyway.
Bournemouth was different because it was so emotional, and that was the finality. If we don't win this, we're down. Yeah. Palace was obviously still tense and stuff like that, but to come back from 2-0 down, knowing that, if we didn't win that, then we're not really going to beat Arsenal, and we're going to rely on other results. Yeah. But we did. We came back 2-0, and came back from 2-0. That was good.
Yeah, well, amazingly, I've got 3 wrote down, and you've said them all. You've said the 3: Bournemouth, Palace, and Tarkowski. It's just, I remember growing up, and there was like a video, like a VHS, like literally showing how old I am, but it was like an Everton encyclopedia or history. And I remember the 85, seeing it, watching it religiously growing up, and it was talking about how the Gladys Street against Munich in the semi-final. I think would have been Ratcliffe, and Kendall said to Ratcliffe at half-time, the Gladys Street will suck the ball into the back of the net for you, if you keep going. And like the Palace night was the perfect example of that. I remember at half time, there was someone sitting next to me who I didn't recognise, must have got a ticket for the night. And he had his son with him, and he just looked like he was going to keep, he just got too much. And I remember at half time losing 2-0, just thinking, like, it can't go that far. You're just going to have to try and relax and just take it in, kind of thing, if you can. And then when Calvert-Lewin scored that header, like, Jesus. Yeah. Like, just because as Rob said, 2-3, 2 down to 3-2 up, the Decore goal, the noise when that went in, like, I remember Neville did on commentary, he said like the stadium was shaking, and it was. Yeah. But I think I'm with you, Ian. I think in Tarkowski goal, I know we did the pod after, and it was quite not an emotional pod, but it was just like, I think is funny, isn't it, at the moment? Don't mean to give a dig at Liverpool fans, but they're being told that they're very much saying, don't tell us how to feel about Trent Alexander-Arnold, which is fair enough. Yeah. But they were telling us how to feel after that. We couldn't celebrate because we know where we are as a club. We knew we knew it wasn't a winner. We're not stupid, but it meant more, didn't it? So I'd probably go with that, because it was. And
what I liked about that, I mean, everyone's got issues with VAR, but there's almost like a double celebration there. Because you celebrate the goal, and then all of a sudden, it goes to VAR. And then to get to celebrate it again almost was funny. Basically, at the end of the day, it doesn't
happen to us.
I prefer to avoid that, though. To be fair, the one celebration, the goal, that'll do.
But I remember, I love after games nowadays when you get like different versions of events and whatnot. And Peter Drury was doing something.
Oh, he was good, that commentary, wasn't it?
And he was in the gantry, not at the top gantry. He was in the gantry that sits between the upper and lower Bullens. He was there, and he's with Lee Dixon. and there's fans keeling over trying to see the screen to see whether it's going to get given or not. And he points to the screen and goes, "It's going to get given." And that's when you sort of start to hear. I remember being in the ground at that point. I remember hearing something coming from the Bullens, if to say.
There was a slight cheer, wasn't there?
They know something's coming here, and then next thing is Michael Oliver blows to the centre circle just to say kick off, and that Tarkovsky goal, I think it means more than people will ever understand. I think that one, to like you just mentioned there, the idea of going out with them with a greater record of Goodison than us was just unacceptable.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, and to get that, because don't forget, in that game, Everton were great, I thought, for about 70 minutes, and then that Salah goal just knocked the stuffing out of us, and it just seemed to be a bit huff and puff after that. And all of a sudden, it was almost, I remember being like a bit slow motion. The ball gets hooked in, Iraburum nods it on, and you're like, what's he doing there? Yeah. And then the rest is there, isn't it? But yeah.
And I know we're pre-recording ahead to the Sunday game, so let's hope, it's unbelievable scenes. But I don't think it can beat that. Those scenes, no. It's the best.
You won't have emotion, will you?
No, no one wanted to go home. Like, I've never sung that much after the game, and I remember like my dad walking home, going it was a moment, wasn't it, kind of thing. And I know it wasn't a winner, but it felt like one. Felt like one.
Let's finish off on even more of a positive then. Best Merseyside derby win that you've been to? I'll go.
There haven't been many.
There hasn't. But there's been a couple. There has been a couple that I'm sure we've all been to. 3-0. Andy Johnson scores 2 and Tim Cahill. Saturday the 9th of September 2006. And I think as well, it helped it by Liverpool the previous season had won the Champions League. Yeah. We were obviously trying to match them as best we could, and it was always going to be difficult. So to beat them 3-0 at home quite convincingly, almost a rout, you could say.
It was one of them complete performances again, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a tough game. I remember Cahill's got Alonso in a headlock. You wouldn't get away with that now, would you? You've even got the mistake from Reina to lead to the third goal. That was comical as well. So you can always take the mickey out of Liverpool for that. I wouldn't say it was a complete performance, but I think 3-0 just to beat your closest rivals 3-0 at home
doesn't happen, does it?
I can't remember the last time that ever happened at Everton. It hasn't happened since. I know we got 2-0, but the 3 added, the cherry on top of the cake on that. And for me, fantastic. Yeah, fantastic.
I like the cup replay, the 1-0 Dan Gosling.
Oh yeah, fantastic. I was going to go with that one. There
was a few moments in that game which wasn't just the game itself. So Gerrard gets substituted early on, I think through injury it was, and after that, Everton sort of started just to take a little bit of control. He hit the post, Everton that game. Leon Osman hit the post, and then Andy van der Meijden's probably single and only contribution to the team at that point whips in a great ball, and then it just the ball, like obviously the goal scored at the Park End, so I watched it from the gather sheet, but just one of my biggest gripes about Goodison and other football grounds is when they have nets that are like blue or red or whatever, they don't have white nets. I think it's against the rules now. You've got to have white nets. But you couldn't really see whether it had gone in or not because of the blue nets. Yeah. And then just the place just goes berserk after it, doesn't it? And it's, we go all the way to the final that year, and we had some run up to the final. It was just that Chelsea game was just one game too far, wasn't it? But yeah, the Dan Gosling one for me was will always be a big memory.
See, there's more than you think.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of the wins over the years, I was working, or the season ticket, I've missed a lot of the derby wins, so I couldn't even say the latest one because I was working that night, because obviously Matt, who works with us, he went because only one of us could go, kind of thing. So that was amazing. The 3-0 one of games I didn't go to, the Gosling one. But I remember, I think it was the first derby win I'd ever been to. Maybe one that happened in the 80s, I can't remember. But we beat Liverpool 2-0, and I think Bees was telling me the date before, Mr. Historian himself there, Bees, September 1993. And we beat them 2-0. And Mark Ward, who was like a neighbour, or his family was a neighbour of ours growing up, so we always kept an eye out on how he was doing. And Cotty scored. But if you don't even remember, after Ward scored, Grobler and McManaman had a fight on the pitch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was just brilliant. You know, it had this brilliance. And then I just remember walking up the road past, you know, up Goodison Road towards like Allsop High School. And there used to be a car park at the bottom there. But there's all houses there now, or little houses or flats. And I just remember seeing a couple of mates from school and me trying to not take the mick, and my dad taking the mick out of him. And it was just around that time, funny enough, growing up, we had quite a good derby record.
Yeah.
Like, even though it was, again, coming into tough times.
Early 90s, we were level.
Yeah, we were really good.
We were.
Really good. So that, I've got to pick one I went to, so I'll go with that.
Ever since we started supporting.
Yeah. One of my favourite derbies, though, it wasn't an Everton win, by the way, but you remember in 2003, it was a proper ding-dong of a game.
Brilliant, yeah.
They went 2-0 up, didn't they? And then we pulled it back to 2-1 and then 2-2, winning 3-2, and then Sturridge scored really late on. It was just a proper ding-dong of two good sides going at it. That's all it was.
That's what a derby should be about.
Yeah, you know, and I think it was one of them games where you thought, oh, let them carry on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. We need a winner here.
Yeah, we need a winner.
Can you remember who the referee was for the one that you mentioned there? So I just put you on the spot. I've just got it up so it's easy for me. It was Saturday, 18th of September 1993.
No, who was it?
The Ward.
Who was it? It's got to be a fake.
David Ellery.
Oh, I see. He seems to be the only referee out there.
That's what you get.
Yeah.
And Souness was the Liverpool manager,
Yeah.
and Kendall obviously was the Everton manager.
Yeah.
Do you know what? A lot of those players who in that team were FA Cup winners.
Yeah.
No, Cotty wasn't, was he? Ridehouse, Hinchcliffe, Jackson, Ablett, Southall. So there was the core there of
a good team there.
The team. Okay, we'll finish off, but before we do, what are you going to miss most about Goodison Park?
I was thinking about that because I can imagine like the signing and Z cars are going to come, aren't they? They're going to follow us. So I just think it's like the routine. I know it sounds stupid, but the routine of like, I think that's what we went to both test events, and it was just a bit like, love the stadium, but it's going to take a bit of time for me, like to get into like what time we leave, or I just like we have a park near Walton Hall Sports Centre, or if we've got our youngest, we'll park on Allsop High School, and just going like the shops that we always go to, or going to Chippy, or going in the church. I just think. Yeah, I think I know it sounds a silly answer, but just the routine I'm going to miss.
It's not a silly answer. I've literally wrote down the match day routine.
That's it.
That's
just
literally
knowing when we're going to go, and
because like you said, you're not missing the fans because the fans are coming. Z cars on the side and they're going to come. The players are going to come. You might not necessarily miss Goodison as a building itself. Do you know what I mean? Like as soon as you get there, really all we do is sit in our seats and wait for the game, and obviously. Get involved in the atmosphere and stuff like that. So for me, it's the match day routine beforehand and the match certainly afterwards. What are you going to do for?
It's going to cost us more money now, isn't it?
It probably will cost us more money. Yeah. What's yours?
I think for mine, routine is up there. But for me, what I'm going to miss most about Goodison is how can I put this in an eloquent way? is it's 100 odd years of stories and nooks and crannies added onto the stadium that like is unique to just the Goodison, from the smell to the walk up to the way if you've done the stadium tour, how tight the tunnel is and things like that. It's the uniqueness of the place that I want to miss, and I think if you've been to Bramley-Moore, obviously it is close to the pitch, but I remember. Games where some players would come far too close to Goodison to the crowd. I remember we played Stoke in 2011 and Tunkai shoves Jagielka, pushes him. The Stoke centre pushes Jagielka. But what Tunkai doesn't realise is how close he is to the Lower Gladys Street, and the Lower Gladys Street, I've never seen anything like it in my life. He was terrified. And I just don't think you're going to get that at Bramley-Moore, even though...
Another incident, Ashley Williams.
No,
of course, yeah, God, yeah. And I think that's what I'm going to miss about the place, and I hope Bramley-Moore can build its own history and build its own uniqueness as to why it's ours and things like that. That's what it is for me.
Okay, well, any final thoughts then before we go off? I mean, again, obviously pre-recorded show, so we going out on Monday the 19th. We don't know the score, but it was never about that really. It was about just sharing memories. Again, we're going to do another one of these with Gav Buckland and Conor O'Neill. So I'm sure there'll be a few different answers for that, different generations of people who go the game. But yeah, any final thoughts?
I just think for me, I think it's time to go.
Yeah.
I think, everyone loves
Get your coat on and get moving.
Exactly. Everyone's got their own reasons for liking Goodison. Paul, you said you've seen us in the 80s. At the end of the day, you've seen us win the league.
Yeah.
Goodison's got its moments and it'll always have its place in history but it is time to move on as a club. I think the really good news this week is that it's being kept as the women's stadium now, and I can eventually take my little girl there as well.
Yeah,
and she can see what I kind of grew up with when she wants to do it, but also she can watch a totally different football team there and hopefully be inspired by it at the end of the day, and it'll always be there. And it'll always be there. I think that's what Goodison is, really.
Yeah, I think it's a great shout, certainly on the women's side, involved with a grassroots football team where people who are high up there are female, footballers or football coaches and volunteers, and it's a great shout, that, mate. I've not really thought about that as much as I should have, really. I think that's a great shout about the legacy we'll be leaving behind there. I think, I'm agree. I think it's time to go. Like, I'm sure it'll be sentimental. I know, again, we're recording before. I'm sure it'll be sentimental, but I've had the Tarkowski moment personally. And I think even all the memories we've talked about today, the more recent ones have been like relegation deciders, haven't they? Or like maybe even equalisers. Like, I think we've got to kick on as a club, haven't we? And that it's not Goodison's fault, obviously, but it does feel like, it is the time to. I'm okay with it. Like, in a word, I'm okay with it.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you for joining us for this Goodison Park special. Please remember to give us a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Paul Wheelock and Rob Astell, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.